The mahogany conference table gleamed under the crystal chandelier as Aunt Margaret adjusted her Hermes scarf with theatrical precision. "We need to discuss the trust redistribution," she announced, her voice carrying the authority of someone who'd never worked a day outside the family business. I sat quietly in my government-issued blazer, watching my cousins Bradley and Vanessa exchange knowing glances. The law firm's conference room reeked of old money and older prejudices, exactly the kind of environment where my family felt most comfortable making decisions about my life. "Sarah's government position simply doesn't warrant equal distribution," Margaret continued, sliding documents across the polished surface. 28 years old and still pulling a civil servant's salary. "It's embarrassing, frankly." Bradley leaned back in his chair, his startup t-shirt a calculated display of Silicon Valley casual. "The optics are terrible, Sarah. We're building generational wealth here, not subsidizing mediocrity." Vanessa nodded enthusiastically, her new engagement ring catching the light. "Bradley's tech company just secured Series B funding, and I'm launching my lifestyle brand. We're actually contributing to the family legacy." I remained silent, my hands folded over the diplomatic courier bag I'd carried to every family meeting for the past 3 years. They assumed it contained boring policy documents, lunch money paperwork as Bradley once called it. "Your grandfather built this empire expecting excellence," Margaret pressed on. "Government work is noble, I suppose, but hardly lucrative. The trust should reflect achievement, not participation trophies." The family lawyer Harrison Webb cleared his throat uncomfortably. "The original will specify equal distribution among grandchildren." "Which we're amending," Bradley interrupted. "Sarah gets 20%. Vanessa and I split the remaining 80%. I finally spoke, my voice steady. "What's the rush on restructuring?" "The market timing is perfect for our expansion plans," Vanessa explained, already spending money that wasn't legally hers. "My influencer platform needs serious capital injection, and Bradley's preparing for his IPO announcement." Margaret's smile was sharp as a blade. "Some people are builders, Sarah. Others are dependents. Your government salary proves which category you belong in." The irony was exquisite. They had no idea that my government salary was a cover for something far more complex. For 3 years, I'd attended these meetings while secretly managing international financial intelligence operations that tracked exactly the kind of wealth they were so eager to flaunt. "I understand your perspective," I said calmly, standing to leave. "I'll need some time to consider the proposal." "There's nothing to consider," Bradley laughed. "This is happening whether you like it or not. Majority rules." As I reached the door, Margaret delivered her final blow. "Perhaps this will motivate you to find more substantial work. Government salaries don't deserve inheritance." I paused, my hand on the brass handle. "You know, you're absolutely right about one thing." "What's that?" she asked smugly. "Some money doesn't deserve to exist at all." Over the next 2 weeks, my family moved quickly to formalize their coup. Bradley hired a publicist to announce his upcoming IPO, while Vanessa commissioned a documentary crew to follow her entrepreneurial journey. Margaret coordinated with their lawyers to expedite the trust modification. I received daily updates on their progress through carefully worded text messages that felt more like victory laps than family communication. "Lawyer says paperwork should be finalized by month end. So excited to finally invest properly. Vanessa. Meeting with Goldman tomorrow about the IPO roadshow. Maybe government work will seem more appealing when you see what real success looks like. Bradley. The family appreciates your understanding about the trust restructure. Perhaps this experience will inspire better career choices. Margaret. What they didn't know was that each message provided me with additional evidence of their financial planning. My position at Treasury's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network had taught me to recognize patterns of suspicious wealth management, and my family was displaying every red flag in the manual. Bradley's Series B funding came from a shell company registered in the Cayman Islands. Vanessa's lifestyle brand was being financed through cryptocurrency transactions that deliberately obscured the money's origins. Most interesting of all, Margaret had been receiving regular wire transfers from offshore accounts tied to a sanctioned Russian oligarch. My diplomatic courier privileges gave me access to international financial intelligence that painted a very clear picture. My family's recent wealth explosion wasn't entrepreneurial genius. It was money laundering on a spectacular scale. I spent my evenings reviewing transaction records and building a comprehensive case file. Bradley's tech company was an elaborate front for moving illicit funds through the U.S. banking system. Vanessa's social media empire was being used to promote luxury goods purchased with dirty money. Margaret was the primary coordination point, using her position as family matriarch to legitimize obviously suspicious financial activities. The beautiful irony was that they were using grandfather's trust, clean old American money, as collateral for their criminal enterprise. By restructuring the inheritance, they planned to inject laundered funds directly into the family's legitimate financial foundation. My phone buzzed with another update from Margaret. Trust modification approved by probate court. New distribution takes effect Friday. Hope you've learned something valuable from this experience. I had indeed learned something valuable. My family weren't just greedy and dismissive. They were federal criminals who'd been operating under my nose for months while insulting my career in financial law enforcement. Friday morning, I dressed carefully in my best diplomatic attire and packed my courier bag with specific documents. The final trust signing was scheduled for 10 a.m. at Webb's law office, followed by a celebration lunch at the country club. It would be the perfect venue for what I had planned. The country club's private dining room buzzed with congratulatory energy as Bradley and Vanessa posed for photos with their trust documentation. Margaret held court at the head table, regaling other family members with stories about tough love and teaching Sarah about real achievement. To the future of the family legacy, Bradley announced, raising his champagne glass. Built by entrepreneurs, not bureaucrats. The room erupted in laughter and applause. I sat quietly in the corner, my courier bag resting beside my untouched salmon. That's when Harrison Webb approached my table, looking deeply uncomfortable. "Sarah, there's been a development with the trust documentation." The room gradually quieted as he continued. "I've just received a federal court order freezing all trust assets pending investigation." Margaret's champagne glass stopped halfway to her lips. "What investigation?" Webb glanced nervously at me, then back to Margaret. "Apparently, several family members are under federal investigation for money laundering and sanctions violations." "That's impossible," Vanessa protested. "We're successful businesspeople, not criminals." I finally stood, opening my diplomatic courier bag for the first time in their presence. Instead of boring policy documents, I withdrew official Treasury Department credentials, federal subpoenas, and transaction records documenting 3 years of financial crimes. "Sarah Wilson, Financial Crimes Enforcement Network," I announced clearly. "Special agent investigating international money laundering operations." The silence was absolute. Bradley's face went completely white. "You're a fucking government clerk. You bring our lunch." "I'm a federal agent with diplomatic courier status," I corrected. "Those boring documents you've mocked for years? They were financial intelligence reports tracking exactly what you've been doing." I spread the evidence across the table like a particularly damning deck of cards. "Bradley, your Series B funding comes from shell companies controlled by designated terrorist organizations. Vanessa, your lifestyle brand is monetizing luxury goods purchased with proceeds from human trafficking. Margaret, you've received over $2 million from a sanctioned Russian oligarch." Margaret's face had turned an alarming shade of purple. "You can't prove any of this." "Actually, I can." I held up my phone, displaying a live video feed. "This entire conversation is being recorded for federal prosecutors. You just admitted knowledge of illegal financial activities in the presence of a federal agent." The dining room erupted in chaos as the full scope of their situation became clear. Bradley tried to grab the documents, but I'd already secured them. Vanessa started crying about her engagement and upcoming wedding. Margaret began screaming about family loyalty and betrayal. Through the confusion, I heard sirens approaching the country club. "The FBI should be arriving shortly," I announced calmly. "I've been coordinating this investigation for 8 months, building a comprehensive case against your entire operation." Harrison Webb looked like he might faint. "Sarah, the trust assets will be completely frozen pending criminal prosecution," I confirmed. "Including the portions you redistributed today. Proceeds of crime, you understand." As federal agents entered the dining room, I gathered my materials and prepared to leave. Margaret grabbed my arm desperately. "Sarah, you don't understand. We're family. We can work this out." I looked down at her perfectly manicured fingers clutching my government-issued blazer. You're right about one thing, Margaret. Government salaries don't deserve inheritance. I paused, watching recognition dawn in her eyes. But they do deserve justice. 6 months later, the headlines told the complete story: multi-million-dollar money laundering ring exposed by undercover Treasury agent. Bradley's tech company was revealed as an elaborate shell operation. Vanessa's lifestyle brand became a federal case study in social media-facilitated financial crimes. Margaret received the longest sentence, 15 years for coordinating international sanctions violations. The family trust was completely dissolved, its assets distributed to victims of the crimes my relatives had enabled. The country club quietly revoked their memberships. Harrison Webb faced disbarment proceedings for failing to report suspicious financial activities. I returned to my real work, the kind of government service that actually matters. My colleagues at FinCEN had supported the undercover operation from the beginning, understanding that financial crime often starts closest to home. The final irony came in a letter from Margaret, written from federal prison. She wanted to reconcile, to explain how family loyalty should transcend professional obligations. She still didn't understand that some inheritances aren't worth accepting. I never wrote back. Government work, as it turns out, can be quite lucrative, just not in the ways my family understood.